Close up, Mrs. DeMille.
Good evening, and welcome to the November 12th work session of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I don't have any announcements this evening. I know that sounds very strange, but it's true. Victoria, I'm sure you do.
Right, I do. Tomorrow, if anybody sees this by Thursday the 13th, please join us at the Ossining Public Library at 6:30 at the Bedars Theater. We will be screening University of Sing Sing, and it is actually referring to our prison, where there's a program that was started at Sing Sing, and now it's expanded to some other prisons in the state that provides it's a nonprofit organization that provides college education to inmates there, and it's been incredibly successful because, of course, most folks who go into the prison system come out of the prison system, and if you have a college degree, you have a much greater chance of getting out of the system and becoming productive, successful members of our community. And that's one of the things we'll be talking about tomorrow night after the screening. We have a really interesting panel of folks who have done work in Sing Sing particularly. And so I hope you'll join us at 6:30 at the Ossining Public Library this Thursday the 13th. And I will also remind everybody, sometimes it's cold out in the winter, and I assume it will be again sometime this winter. And
This weekend.
okay, yes, that's right. It actually is going to feel like winter soon. So that'll be a good reminder that you should visit ossining.energizeny.org and find out how you can take advantage of funding programs that exist in New York State for residential homes. And there are also programs that exist for commercial properties and nonprofits. So please visit ossining.energizeny.org and learn more about how you can find out about the efficiency of your home, make your home more valuable, more comfortable, and more cost-effective to maintain. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No.
Richard?
Thank you. We have a number of very interesting items on the agenda this evening, which will be followed by an executive session in closed session for personnel discussion. The first item this evening is with respect to real property owned by the Village of Ossining. The Village of Ossining is the owner of property located on Water Street, which is the former Public Works Department property, and is also the owner of property surrounding the post office on Spring and Main, which is currently primarily parking lots and also contains the current Market Square. The village is always reviewing ways to creatively reuse its property, reviewing the highest and best use for properties. And in this particular instance, it was approached by Wood Partners, who had expressed an interest in purchasing or at least approaching the board for discussion of what the board's vision would be vis-a-vis their potential intentions of redeveloping some of the village parcels. So I thank them for coming in this evening and welcome them. And at this point, I'll turn it over to the manager of Downtown Economic Development, Ingrid Richards.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight, the Board of Trustees will listen to a presentation from Wood Partners that will lay out a conceptual plan for the old DPW site and the Market Square site. As background for the board, the old DPW site consists of 4 parcels totaling 3.4 acres and is surrounded by Main Street to the south, Central Avenue to the north, and Water Street to the west. This site is located in our planned waterfront zoning district. This district was primarily created to promote transit-oriented development. I want to share a number of facts regarding transit-oriented development tonight in order to provide a framework for the board. TODs are built within a quarter to a half mile of a transit stop, 5 to 15 minutes. Designed so that pedestrians and cars may coexist. Reduces overall auto dependency, diversify housing opportunities for a variety of all ages and income levels. The Market Square Village parking lot site consists of 4 parcels totaling approximately 1.5 acres and is located on Main and Spring Street. site is located in our Village Center zoning district, which seeks to preserve the historic downtown district, promote increased business activity by permitting uses and levels of intensity that are greater than elsewhere in the village, and provide opportunity for upstairs residences and offices. Both projects, if built, will achieve transatlantic development in the village of Ossining and will build a sustainable foundation for a dynamic and emerging community. TODs have been a key tool in assisting similar historic Hudson River communities in the revitalization of their downtowns by attracting residents who seek desirable spaces to work with and play. These residents are potential consumers who will purchase goods and services provided by our local businesses, thereby sustaining the business. Through the development of Avalon Harbor Square, which is currently being constructed, and the old Beacon Hewitt lot, which is in the process of being leased, the village has experienced tremendous interest by developers and continues to open businesses, stores in the downtown. I look forward to many more in the near future. For instance, village officials will be attending a ribbon cutting for Foundry Fitness, a CrossFit center opening at Spring Street. Also, a fresh food market has opened where the old K&S sneaker store once called home. Other openings include Melita's Outlet, a retail consignment shop, and a number of food establishments. And a dentist office will open in the near future. The village also anticipates the opening of a children's theater store. Businesses are opening in the downtown that meet the needs of all socioeconomic levels of our community. These sites that develop are in keeping in line with the village's execution of its economic development strategic objectives to provide attractive, high-quality housing that will attract young professionals and empty nesters to live in our historic village with a support active commerce in the village of Ossining. So without further ado, we have a new Mitchell.
Thank you. I think that was a presentation.
Makes it go so much faster. Welcome back, Hunter.
Yeah, and I hope you don't mind if I make this a fun type of presentation, more tongue-in-cheek kind of a thing, rather than a more
Please do.
business-oriented thing. I have a 10-minute presentation that's projected behind you, so I would like to apologies. Thank you. Just to introduce myself, my name is Anoop Mizra. I'm a Senior Vice President with Wood Partners. I've been a long-time resident of Westchester County. Been here since '88, and I love this county. And this is something I love doing. I'm an architect by profession, but please don't hold that against me. Been a developer now for 15 years, and Wood is a national development company. I'm out of White Plains. That's where generally people start out by saying, "Hi, my name is," and that's the identity. Who are you? Used to be Sing Sing. Became Ossining in 1901. Became a river town. Focus shifted from Sing Sing all the way up north, and the town was built around a couple of spines. And that's where we come in. We've been asked to look at 2 sites, and we like them both. We like to give you a short presentation, a 10-minute presentation about who we are and what we think we can do, and how can we create an identity for the village. We're basically a national multi-family development company. We have 17 offices across the country. Statistics aside, our motto is to improve people's lives by creating better communities. 46,000 units, 70 properties, 19,000 units currently under management, and we've been nationally ranked 1, 2, and 3, depending on whose county. But overall, we're a complete. But we're basically a all-in-one company. We are vertically integrated. We have institutional relationships and a proven track record. That's pretty much where we are. The folks in the middle in Texas and Colorado, that's because the CEO lives in Houston and loves Dallas. He skis close to Denver. Otherwise, they're mostly on the East Coast and West Coast, and as you can see, Northeast is very important for us. We've got some very good institutional capital relationships. You heard of all these folks, and they love TOD development. Just want to give you a quick breeze through the kind of properties we're developing in the Northeast, especially Boston. 4 stories, 5 stories, stuff with parking, TODs,
close to the city. Ideally, 4 or 5 stories over parking, we like that. Our emphasis is on high-end stainless steel, wood floors, wood cabinets, granite countertops. And we love historical locations. This one called Alta Stone Place. Used to be a mill, made rubber shoes, and basically we took that over, we built new homes, plus we renovated the mill. Some quick shots of what we are doing. This one is about 90% done. Very successful development close to the train station. This is in Hopkinton, Mass. That's where the Boston Marathon starts. Once again, one of the first projects in Boston, ground-up development. Some bird's eye view. This is different from Ossining because it's got vast amount of land. Not exactly a TOD, but we have a learning experience here. We built this ourselves. Typically, our clubhouses are 5,000 to 7,000 square feet. That means amenities for our residents. Once again, same kind of finishes as you saw in the past previously. Some more projects, typically 4 stories, parking, landscaping, clubhouse facilities, amenities. This one's our latest one in Cambridge, Mass. This is the biggest one we have. And it's also a TOD. Train line runs right behind the site, and a new train station is being built across the train line. It's under construction, the steel's up, cladding's up. That's how it look like afterwards. And this is all through our institutional capital partner relationships. We are well funded, we have access to very smart capital. They love what we do, TOD, period. Just breezing through, I want to just now move to the 2 projects we're here to discuss. I want to talk about what makes a successful TOD and a downtown project. Here's what I've got. This is Ossining. This is the village of Ossining. It has the makings, and it is a very nice little town, village. It's got a downtown, it's got a square, it's got views, it's got buildings that mimic old Europe. It also has a waterfront, train station, it's got retail. It's got makings, as Christopher Alexander said. You get the sun, you get the food, you get the water, you have people. People are missing. But then you always hear words that talk about what makes a downtown, plaza, hey, no kids, urban renewal, we can turn education upside down, it's got to have mixed use, and it's got to be TOD. And the big elephant in the room, the prison, we've got to deal with that too. So it has to be reoriented. And part of what we discovered was that you basically are looking at 3 spines. There's a north-south, Metro-North railroad spine that connects folks to job centers. Then of course you got the Highland north-south, and then you got a cross, east-west spine that connects the 2. And coincidentally, both the sites we're looking at happen to be on that spine. Hence, that's what makes that as ground zero. That circle there, that's ground zero. It's an opportunity for us to not only create a TOD development, but also create a square for the village. Just a neighborhood view of what it looks like. The waterline blues of the sites. This is the first one, the Market Square site, as Ingrid said, 1.5 acres, and we have some suggestions how to optimize this vis-a-vis neighborhood. It's a mishmash of tax lots, got a lot of things happening. Eventually, they're all going to be 4 or 5 stories, maybe 6, deep, narrow lots. And this is on a gloomy day. You can tell the clouds, and you can tell, when there's nobody around. But it has the makings. That's the second site, the DPW site. It's 3.5 acres. It's on the way as you walk past the downtown towards the train station on Main Street. It also parallels Central Avenue, which is another major street. And that's what it looks like today, on a nice day. It has a creek called Sing Sing. And the site falls 40 feet from the back to the front, which is how we intend to take advantage of this, and eventually revive the development of this neighborhood, be the ignition, the catalyst. So some ideas came to us. We engaged architects and people that tend to talk. And there were words that were thrown around. Square, the fountain, the sculpture, what makes a square, multifunctional urban space, I don't know what it means. Visual enclosures, paintings designed for pedestrians, and the square represents the city's unique identity. That's what got us. If we had to create a new identity for downtown, and coincidentally, that parking lot is ground zero. The parking lot is pretty much where everything should happen. So we took advantage of that and said, what can we bring to the table that we know of that creates a vibrant downtown, a vibrant square, something that invites people to come, not just on specific occasions, but every day. Here are some examples from Europe. Squares bounded by buildings, 4 or 5 stories, fountains, sun, people eating outside, umbrellas, markets. So, that's what creates a unique identity. So we figured if we were to do a vignette on the Market Square thing, here's what we would do. We would build a garage, because we're taking over some existing public parking spaces. Build a garage, a 2-story garage, build retail that opens up into that plaza. Create a plaza with a fountain, pave it, and on special days create barriers for people to walk on the streets, Main Street, Spring Street, divert traffic, so you get farmers markets, you get art exhibits, you get festivals that can take place on specific occasions. Then the smaller lot, A, would be once again, more public parking, because we're taking over public parking, more retail, and we'll have sky lobbies for our apartments above. We have 2 entrances, the upper entrance for public, lower entrance for residential. Retail will be double height, probably attract a high-end restaurant, or something which has food and eateries that's focused. And on the other lot A, we'll probably get a small grocer, direct-to-table type, organic food type person. Then our residential on top. And so what will all this look like? And the reason why this is crucial for us is because it bounds 4 streets and creates a downtown, creates a square. Like this.
Like that?
Close enough. It's got buildings, it frames the back, it provides an open space, sun hits it, has a fountain, kids will play, people will come, birds will fly, and at the same time, it creates an opportunity for the retail, the restaurant to open up and sit outside. You can have your meals and basically be, a source for enjoyment. This is more something like a farmer's market. We close off the streets, divert traffic, and you get the same folks who would ordinarily be inside now are outside using up that plaza. This is more to show what scale it'll all look like once you build on top of the parking lot. We also looked at the DPW site. I'm afraid I don't have a rendering that could do justice, but look at what we have. There's a creek that flows and the side drops 40 feet. How do you take advantage of that? Parking that can never be seen but used, retail in the corner, and take advantage of the creek to make it a publicly accessible creek that people can walk up and be next to it. So it has the makings. We of course have to adjust for the slopes and side grades, create multi-level parking which will not be visible from Main Street, and the amenity package that opens up onto the creek and looks down onto Wall Street. At the end, have a 4-story apartment on top. What this allows us to do is, that's just a summary of what we think we can achieve here. We're looking at 16,000 square feet of retail, almost 300,000 square feet of residential, parking for residential, about 300 plus cars, almost 1:1 ratio, because it's a TOD, and for public, 117 spaces. And we also want to create public plazas. Now this is not including the roads. well, about 5,500 square feet, and amenities for our residents. But who's going to end up using this? For example, parcel A, we already talked about organic foods, grocery, small neighborhood grocery store, direct-to-table type place. Parcel C and D, a destination restaurant with outdoor seating. And the DPW corner could be a coffee, sandwich, bagel shop. People walk down to the train station and pick something up from there, which hopefully will ignite the next round of developments in close to the train station. On the residential side, we're very conscious of the fact that TOD developments suit certain market segments, sub-markets. The millennials, the young folks, professionals who are outpriced from Manhattan, they want to be up here, they grew up here, or they want to come back, or they want to buy a house eventually. Singles, couples, young families, no kids, or some kids, or young children. Mostly, studios and one bedrooms, with a smattering of 2 bedrooms to allow for rental sharing. And we also want to talk about folks that are downsizing, empty nesters, folks that are looking to remain in this town. They want to move, but they're sold their homes. That's an ideal place for them. And we talked about folks that are outpriced from New York City, folks to do dual commute. One takes a train to Manhattan, the other one goes up to Fishkill, works for IBM or Tarrytown. So, having said that, how can we make this a vibrant place? Or festivals, holidays, farmers markets, of course, social gatherings, speeches by politicians, art exhibits. It's a place that can now start to say, look, we got a backdrop, we have a square that naturally lends itself to it. They're bound by buildings, and there's food, there's art, there's sunshine, and there's water. And we think that'll be a successful thing. Of course, for us, there's a timeline we can follow. Ingrid and I will get together after this just to see what's the next step. There'll be a time lag. Obviously, we need to get the approvals and do a due diligence and see environmental and geotech situation, conditions, do marketing, pre-development, construction, lease up, and stabilization. I'm looking at like a 4 or 5 year long project. The next step, based on your feedback, I'd love to get your comments, your questions. I'll be happy to address them. I'm sure this is something that'll benefit everybody. We as developers, we are solidly behind this. We can do the right thing. We will do the right thing. We just want to get your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
This is an extraordinary step beyond that very, very basic study that we did a year or so ago. And it's the first time that we've seen any even remotely specific proposals. And I say remotely specific because obviously you're not making that. The board has not determined exactly yet when and in what direction we're going. And I think this gives us a lot of stuff to think about. It's certainly a lot of what you have here is from the comprehensive plan and also from discussions that we've been having over the last several years. There is a lot of thinking for us to do.
I've worked for the village before. Some of you may recognize me from my Atria senior living days, and obviously this is for us, towns on the river, on the water, have a special attraction for a lot of reasons. And they attract people who love arts, who love the water, love to be out there away from the city. And it takes a special person to move in here. I don't know when kids became a bad word, but sometimes they would have to remain living here, buy a house, start a family, use a school system. Austin has a very good school system. I think for us, for me particularly, this is a project that has success written all over it. It's just too early in the process itself. We don't know how long this is going to take. There's a lot of decisions to be taken. saw was just a smattering of our initial thoughts. Can be refined, nothing is cast in stone.
Mhm.
We think there's a lot of room to work, if we build a parking garage for 100 spaces for the public, there's revenues for the town, for the village. There's revenue from property taxes, sales taxes, you know, how 200 apartments could create new businesses, new retailers will come in, because there's more buying power. And to be able to put all this together is, I think, our focus, our game plan. And as urbanists, we're going to realize that it's just not when you build a building, people will come. There have to be elements present to make them come. And I think we have just started out. This is our first baby step. There are a lot more steps to be taken, and we fully recognize that. I think part of the reason that I'm here is, of course, I would like to start the dialogue.
Yeah.
We have a lot of critical steps that we need to take before we go any farther in the dialogue, but certainly this is food for thought. Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I love your presentation. I think it was very in-depth.
Thank you.
I am so happy to hear about parking, because one of the big issues that comes up all the time with people is parking, all the time, parking. And you've addressed that. Two things. First, one of the things that we were hoping for, in however this gets developed, is a performance space of some kind. If you've been to Portchester recently and seen what they've done with the Capitol Theater,
Yes.
that has created a restaurant destination by having a world-class performance space. The Tarrytown Music Hall is having a resurgence, and they're starting renovations there, because it too is a place that makes the places that have performance spaces a destination, besides just some place to sleep at night. When I first moved to Ossining with my wife, I didn't realize it for the first 2 years that my wife was still buying her vegetables at the 14th Street Green Market in Manhattan and hauling them home on the train. She slept here, but we didn't really live here. And that's something that has to be addressed by having things like a performing space, places where there's entertainment, a nightlife, which is something that's missing here. If you want to get young people to move here, you need to have something for them to do at night.
True.
So that's a concern. The second concern is the ratio of space that's residential and commercial to open space. The amount of open space there is, it seems small at first blush.
Okay.
So there's that. Finally, in terms of process, we do a lot of reaching out to the public, and we intend going forward to doing a lot more reaching out to the public on these kinds of decisions. And I think they called them charrettes during our John, right? Charrettes as opposed to Tourette's, which is a whole different thing. Or soubrettes with the hot dogs. We don't want that. They're okay, but maybe we could have soubrettes bring the hot dogs to the charrettes, and then people could discuss ideas with you. How do you feel about engaging in that kind of a process with members of the public?
Actually, we enjoy that. And the reason is that it even helps the process move faster. Once the public gets involved, they're not surprised by the new information. They're part of the information creation. What also happens is that there are specialists, charrette specialists, architects and planners who get involved, and they lead the discussion. And the public gets involved in comments and feedback, and we as developers would get involved, talking about doability, the practicability of the project. So, and we like that. I think that would be a very good first step.
Excellent.
Because in the long run, you want the people to be part of that process, the development process.
Cool.
You don't want folks to say that, hey, we we never knew what was coming down the pike. It was thrust upon us. We don't want that.
No.
Finally, before we go on, one last thing.
Yes, sir.
I have an office at 55 Water Street at Standard & Poor's, and right behind it is a street that's all buildings from colonial times. You know, where George Washington had lunch before he napped, because apparently he slept everywhere. And one of the things that when they developed down there that was a problem is that all those beautiful buildings are in shadow almost all the time. It's like dusk forever
Yes,
because of the scale difference.
yes.
And I notice this seems to be a much larger scale than the rest of what's there. How do you, I mean, again, I'm not an architect. How do you address that so that we don't have a wind tunnel and the rest of the village in shadow with the trees all dying?
Well, it's a very good question. I think the right answer is that we really haven't looked at it from shadows and wind tunnels and wind effects, and
But you will.
we will. And that'll be one of our things. Now, and this ties very neatly into your first comment, the ratio of residential to open space. It may behoove us to come to our own conclusion that we need to open up the building a little bit. Reduce the wind effect, get more sun into it. And secondly, if we have to expand on the plaza, push it back a little bit to get more sunshine, to get more trees. Do the right thing.
Okay.
That's our interest. I mean,
You've answered all my questions, and we have 4 more people, so speak.
Yeah, thank you for your time and for your presentation. Having been somebody that was part of the group of people that created the comprehensive plan, I certainly understand your concept and how it fits in with I guess the plan as we laid it out. But comprehensive plans are living documents, and as things take place and other developments happen, things can change. So, and I believe that our comprehensive plan is still evolving, and it's still changing. I think one of the most important things, and you said it yourself, that public engagement is going to be really critical. At the candidates forum, when they asked me what I thought it was going to take, what's going to make Ossining a success, I says it's the empty properties in our downtown. And certainly the DPW as well. I mean, that's a crucial property because it connects the
link.
waterfront and and the downtown village area. So, but the public engagement is really going to have to take place, and it's something that I'm committed to. And I'm hoping that you'll be an observer of that public engagement. I'm not sure how much we would actually engage you to do that actual work, but I think that'll help you to get a better understanding of public sentiment and a better understanding of what the people who live here, what's their vision of that. We're in a situation here where, as you say, we've got a couple of developments. We got the space downtown, we've got the Ginsburg project, we have another project on State Street that's moving through, and that's going to have a significant impact when those projects are either completed or close to completed. But I'm really excited that you're interested in Ossining.
Well,
I think it's great that you're here.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing we like to see.
I
But,
remember we had interviewed Ossining residents for the A3 at Senior Living. And we asked them simple questions. Why do you like living here? Their answers are very interesting. And that led me to believe that, this is a town, a village where you want your families to grow. Start out and grow a family and you want to be here. So what attracts people to towns? It shouldn't be just a 12-year thing where your kids get out of school and you're gone. It should be an ongoing process. You mentioned the DPW site. It is a challenging site. And we don't have all the answers, but I believe based on a dialogue with the public and based on a dialogue with the professionals, their input, the trustees' input, we'll come up with a solution that is the right solution. And it's, I think, the right thing to do.
Is this an overall, like, all or nothing? Like, if for some reason we didn't want to have the same company do both the DPW site and the Market Square site, would it still interest you to do one or the other? Or is this an overall integrated thing for you?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Ingrid and I have been talking about this for a while. The Market Square site only affords you X amount of square footage and Y number of units. The DPW site gives you more, but the challenge is the DPW site, it's a different challenge for the DPW site, and it's an interesting project at the Market Square site. We'd love to do them both. And that's what helps us underwrite some of our, in financial parlance, the overheads.
Okay.
Because at that point, the project starts to make sense.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Thank you.
Manuel?
Danny?
Go last.
You made brief mention, and I just wonder if you could expand on public access to a greenway from Water Street. Did you walk through that property to see, because there is the potential for a public access greenway that would connect Water Street to what is right now about to be, well, we're in the process of it becoming a pedestrian walkway that goes as far as Central Avenue. Is part of your plan to incorporate connecting where it dead ends, right, or will soon be dead ending the public access at Central Avenue, connecting that as a public greenway through the Water Street end?
I would love to look into that in more detail. The short answer is we didn't have a chance to look at that, but that's a very interesting thing that you just brought up, because I'd love to incorporate that pedestrian path, because that's what makes it successful. You can walk along a creek that already has a certain charm to it, and once you open up that, the public-private partnership is all about getting the public involved. And part of what I believe, is that if we can incorporate some of those features that you just mentioned, that will make that DPW development a more successful development than if we were to say, hands off, here's a barrier, you can't enter. It's the way we do things.
Yeah, the couple of the things, if you're going to continue looking into that, it would be a really valuable connection between our waterfront train station region up to our downtown, and also it connects to the Aqueduct Trail.
Yes.
So if you ever have an opportunity to actually walk it yourself, it's quite magnificent. You would have no idea you're in the middle of a downtown when you're there.
It's amazing.
Wondrous.
And my first thought when I walked the area on Water Street, the train station, and some of those buildings and single-family homes, is there's got to be a comprehensive way to look at this, not piecemeal. Because ultimately, when development starts to happen, you don't want to be burdened with smaller projects that don't stand on their own. It's got to be a more comprehensive view, some approach to it. Parking is a big thing. What do people do when they walk? Security is a big thing. And obviously, retail and entertainment and other sources of revenue. So somebody, sometime, somewhere has to look at this comprehensively.
Manuel?
All right. I have a couple questions. It was a really good presentation.
Thank you.
One of the things that I noticed on there, and great projects all over the United States. I saw your website before this when we knew you were coming. One thing that I want to have the public to understand is we did not ask them to come in. They asked themselves to come in front of us and present this to the public. So please understand that we have not made any decisions. We're not making any decisions right now. We are just listening to him and his company doing this great presentation for something that we have done some studies in the past year and a half. Have said that, in your presentation you gave pretty good samples of how the downtown may look. What I did not see is any samples that your company has done in relationship within a downtown setting. Is anything that we can look into? Is it something that you guys have done before in the past?
Yes, the short answer is yes. And I picked examples out of our Boston office, 'cause that's the closest one to me.
Okay.
But I'll be happy to forward you examples of what we're doing across the nation,
Great.
especially in
Setting
downtown.
when the settings exactly within the downtown area.
Similar settings.
Okay.
I'm not sure they'll be exact, but
Okay.
definitely similar. At least from goal perspective, they meet the goals of the downtown TOD, reviving the neighborhood kind of approach.
Yeah, because part of what we have, even though our downtown is part of the landmark, locally landmark, and part of that is nationally landmark, that the sections where those parking lot areas are located are not in the district. But because they are so literally across from each other, it needs to have a relationship between that. Not only that, whoever gets to build in these properties will have to go through all the boards and all the process that we'll have to do through the design. Not only that, but utilizing the architectural guidelines that we have to put in place a couple years back. Having said that, I was looking at the open space that you have on Market Square area, downtown, parcel A, C, and D. You have a retail portion of 12,000 square feet, residential about 42. The plaza, and I know that Bob brought up some of that concern, is you only have 5,000 square feet. I know that we have a parking lot right now, but just the portion with the what we use, I guess, the smaller lot, so to speak, the lot that you call parcel A, there's about 16,000 square feet there now. But now taking that and taking just this small portion across the street is another 10,000 square feet. So that's like a total of 26,000 square feet of a space that we typically use through the year. But you only providing on this plan that you have in front of us only 5,000. So to me, it's a limited space that we will have. So I think what we may want to see, and any developer that comes in front of us, I think it's important, as you have heard, the open space and what we do in the downtown to engage people. That we have a lot things going through. Like I said, through the year, we have a lot of events that we utilize those open space areas. I like the parking lot concept. What kind of concerns me is how you, I don't want to say camouflage, but how you integrate that element within the downtown setting.
Well, that's a very good question. I think both the questions about the open space ratio and camouflaging the parking garage. We certainly look into that open space issue. I think there's more that we can do, and it all means that we have to have a more serious look into this, try to move things around, try to get a bigger plaza. As far as the parking garage, there are interesting ways of how you can, I wouldn't use the word camouflage because that connotates the wrong
Integrate.
message.
It's more like integrate within the
It'll be integrated and down, and my attempt in the next round would be to create more retail, smaller retail along that street, Spring, so that you don't see the garage.
It's behind the retail.
Correct, it's behind the retail.
Yeah.
Now, those will be smaller stores, there won't be the large retail stores that you typically like to see for a large retailer, but small mom and pop stores can function there. And that could be one effective way of addressing that issue. These are very valid concerns. I think from where we stand, we have to do more work on this. We have to address your concerns. There'll be more. But as we go along, these are very valid issues that we need to address early on, so when we do, we go for the public charrette, we already know what some of those concerns will be. We have addressed them by that.
Could you just clarify, I'm not looking at the picture right now, but there are actually 4 ABCD lots in the 2 sides of Spring Street. And you are only considering, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 of them, and you're not interested in the one that's to the east of the post office, or is that
Oh,
part
we
of the
are.
plan? You are,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
okay,
it's,
my mistake, thank you.
It's all, because they're not contiguous, it's
Mhm.
very hard to say, look, this is all one piece. It's just that we have to do spotted development.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
as time will tell, once we start to look at these pieces individually, what can we do collectively for all and individually for that specific lot?
Okay.
You said early on that you were influenced by the similarity of our downtown to European architecture, and there were 4 photographs of Strasbourg and somewhere in northern Germany and Venice. There's one of those is Venice.
It's Verona,
Verona.
yes.
Looks like a place in Venice as well. I was struck by the fact that you're quite correct. There is a similarity, and that's because a lot of our buildings were built by and for immigrants from Europe, whose concept was a village that was that size and shape that they're accustomed to. And we have a great deal of variety, and we have a vernacular here, an architectural vernacular here, which I noticed in one of your elevations. You had arched windows. You look across the street, you see the arch at the top of the building, you see arched windows. I think that actually goes a long way to dispel the fear people have of blocks of
Yes.
architecture blocking the light, but also not reflecting the character of the village.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate your having done that.
It's a beautiful square in Innsbruck, popular for tourists, and locals hate them. But on a clear day when there's nobody around, that scale mimics the scale that you have over here. Even Tübingen in Germany, there's a triangular public space, public park. That reminds me of this.
Mhm.
And I think based on where we're going with the heights and the style, we can start to, create some of that atmosphere. And we don't want to mimic it because for obvious reasons, but we have the makings of a very nice public square.
Good.
And a public square has to be bound by buildings and has to have those features and elements, and I think we'll be there one day.
Terrific.
I have,
Thank you.
No,
Thank
wait,
you very much.
wait,
This was
wait.
terrific.
wait,
Thank you very much.
Wait,
I have one. I'm
He's
sorry.
got another one. He's got
I
another.
have sort of like 2 more questions, but it's only one question. How many units were you thinking of having on each property?
I did say it's about 300,000 square feet of residential. Once you start to chip away, you can say an average unit is about gross 1,000 square feet, so we're looking at 250 to 275 units.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
and
you for coming.
it's great to see you again.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is with respect to Harbor Square, the Promenade Park, and an update on the dock plan. The village, with the assistance of Harbor Square, is about to realize its waterfront park, and that work is about to start. And this evening we have an update, and I'll turn it over to our planner, Valerie Monastra.
Good evening. Tonight you're going to be seeing a presentation. One deals with the actual park itself. As part of the grant proposal, the grant project, all the amenities that are going to be incorporated into the Promenade Park are going to be funded, or some of them will be funded through the grant. And so as part of the grant process, we need to provide the state plans for which they're going to be implemented. And so we are here tonight to present to you more or less, I'm going to say, a final draft of the plans, and then hopefully you will give your responses back to those, so ultimately we'll send send those up to the state very shortly because, as you know, the development is under construction, and the grant itself, it does have an expiration date, so they do want to see us moving forward on this particular project. That is not to say that absolutely every detail needs to be worked out tonight, because I'm sure there will be some things where there might be a few different opinions, but for the most part, we'd like to present the state as to the overall the plan concepts. The second thing we're also going to talk about tonight is the dock. As you know, the second grant that we also have from the state is to do dock design. Again, you probably should have received a proposal from Ed Weinstein's consultants. They worked on they worked with the village on the shoreline stabilization project on Harbor Square, and they also worked on the village for a waterfront access and trailway plan that was developed a few years ago at this point. And he is here tonight not necessarily to finalize any sort of contract, but I had him put together proposals so that you could see the grant was for $43,000, and it was specifically to include design, construction, permitting. And so I asked Ed to just sort of elaborate on all his work that would be associated with that $43,000 as part of that grant. So he's just going to touch base a little bit and sort of introduce himself to this board, and then also let you know a little bit about his background. So I'll turn it over to Joe Digaleski, and we'll get started on the presentations. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we're going to start off with the doc.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi,
Wow. So, okay, so tonight I think we're going to start off with Ed. I promised him first up tonight. We had some discussion on this dock, and we had some further discussion along the approval process about potentially expanding what was maybe originally conceptualized as the extension of the landing. And I think there was some discussion to have larger vessels and larger ships and
Yes.
cutters and
Yes.
things of bigger nature come in. So I had some
Queen
discussion.
Mary, I think, was
Yeah.
on the list.
I had some discussion, we got the crane here now, right?
Yeah,
we could
saw
just
that.
Come up the river and build it. So I had some discussions with Ed, and Martin's been working in the background too with his Hudson River initiatives and whatnot. And we've worked with Ed extensively on what potentially could be the expanded dock program. So I think right now Ed has looked at the base grant and prepared a proposal, but it's up for consideration, I think, to the board to see if we want to take that proposal and expand what the program may ultimately be. Now, we have successfully worked in the past with various grant givers, Department of State or Department of Parks, whoever it may be, to expand the scope of underlying grants that the village has
Great.
received. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed, and he can do a little discussion here on that.
I guess I'll begin by telling you a little bit about my background. Since 1970, I've been involved in designing and developing waterfronts. I was Director of Waterfront Development for the City of New York. I was Assistant Commissioner of Port Planning and Development for the city. So I've worked on everything from canoe and kayak launch ramps to major container terminals in the Port of New York.
Yay.
Some of the projects we've worked on, include around, the Ansville Creek Pier. We've done a pier in Whitestone, Queens for the Malba Association, which is a local community association. We do a lot of work with New York Water Taxi, designing docks all over New York City. Currently, we're working with the New York Wheel Project, the huge observation wheel, which at least for a short time until Abu Dhabi builds a bigger one, they will be the biggest observation wheel in the world at about 600 feet tall. And we're working on a couple of levels with them, with their construction people, on constructing a pier which will be used for construction purposes and bringing materials to the site, and designing water taxi terminals for them. Most recently, we have been hired by the city of Newburgh to rebuild their Newburgh Landing Pier. And the same kind of discussion is going on in Newburgh. They're actually starting, with a more sort of grassroots kind of approach as to what this pier will be. Currently, they have 2 excursion boat operators operating in Newburgh, but the question is, could they and should they accommodate some of these larger vessels? There are a couple of what they call small cruise lines that come up the Hudson, the Potomac, and do coastal cruising throughout the country and in the Northeast. American Cruise Lines runs, quite a few cruises up the Hudson. They stop in Catskill, they stop in Poughkeepsie. I mean, I guess for consideration is whether they should be stopping in Ossining as well.
Yes.
So that's my background. You have the proposal, to prepare the construction documents and do the permitting. We do a lot of that kind of work. Frankly, we're very good at it, and we have a good relationship with all the regulatory agencies, and I'll open this up for questions.
The size of the large boats that your project would accommodate, what are we talking about?
Probably about 300 feet length overall.
I'm very happy, thank you. We have a police boat. We also are talking about a fire boat. Is it possible to accommodate them in a way that the police boat and the fire boat can have their dockage there without interfering with the dockage of the larger vessels that come in?
The simple answer is yes. I mean, the
I love
grant
simple
application
answers.
was for a particular scope, which was a dock which would accommodate perhaps vessels like the Clearwater, others, the Half Moon, visiting vessels of a pretty small size.
These boats are small.
And it
too.
would include some floating docks for transients. That's kind of similar to what we had done something with the village of Greenport out on Long Island. They have a pier with docks for transients.
Good.
I guess it's up to you and your resources how much you'd like to build. There's a lot of river out there in which you can build. I mean, the bigger it is, the more complicated the regulatory component becomes. Because the mantra of DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, is avoid, minimize, mitigate. So they like you to do the least possible, and that's often not, and you have a particular program. But that being said, with water-dependent uses, you have a much better chance of getting your project approved.
One of the concerns that I have, safety-wise, we have a ferry that runs year-round. In the winter, almost all of the public safety vessels, both police, fire, and rescue, are fiberglass, and they're out of the water in the winter. And if, God forbid, there was some kind of a problem with the ferry in the winter, a fire on the boat, touching bottom and putting a hole in your hull, the nearest cutter is up in Saugerties,
Right.
and the next nearest is all the way down off of Staten Island. And if we did have a steel boat here, I know some communities have a bubbler system to keep the ice open.
Right.
In your design, have you thought about making it integrated into it that we would be able to have access to the dockage for public safety vessels year-round?
Not a subject that's been discussed, but it certainly could be put on the table.
Just a thing to add to your list. I'm done.
I think that the plans for this were developed through the Boat and Canoe people from the Boat and Canoe Club.
So this particular grant does require a community, a stakeholder group. And so, I spoke to Henry, as we all know that Henry is planning to retire. But he said he would very much like to continue being part of this particular project. And he has the resources not only of the different stakeholders in the community, but also clearly the expansive knowledge of docking and dock building and dealing with boats and stuff. So the thought is that I would start with him, and then we would sort of build a stakeholder group to help advise with the design, and then clearly this board would also advise with the
Yeah,
design.
I'd like to be involved in that.
Right.
Yeah, obviously.
So that is one of the steps of the grant, is that we actually have to submit a stakeholder group.
Good.
And there actually was participation very early on.
That's correct. I mean,
from
this
the,
design actually, you know, the design of the dock that we submitted to the state was very much a homegrown design. So, you know, that's where our starting platform is, and then we'll just continue from there.
and certainly if we're expanding the scope of the project, we certainly need a lot of participation from people who use the river. Anyone?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, so, just so I understand, we're assembling information that would be part of a grant proposal.
No, we actually have the grant to do the design of the dock.
So now we're deciding what the scope of the design is?
No, what I'm just doing tonight is introducing you to Ed Weinstein, who we'd like to use as our consultant.
I see.
We have to finish the contracts from the state have been submitted to the village. We're gonna finalize those, but they'd like us to identify a consultant that we are gonna plan to use throughout the process. And then we have to start, finalize those, and then also, Harbor Square is also working with us as a partnership on this grant. So clearly there'd be another contract between Harbor Square and the village, just similar to the shoreline stabilization. So we have to work out those contracts, but so that's why we're here tonight, is just to identify.
So this is a job interview, essentially, is what we're having tonight.
Well, it's a, you know, he's a contractor that has his specialty, and so we're presenting him tonight to the board.
So I guess the question is, you know, if we expand the scope of the work, will the grant money that we have be able to cover the expanded scope of what we're asking you to look into?
I'm pretty sure if the scope expanded significantly, that the fee would, you know, have to be increased. I could certainly absorb minor changes in the scope, but any major changes in the scope, you know, we'd have to talk about what that fee ought to be.
But Ginsburg would pick that up, right, Joe?
Thanks, Joe. We really appreciate that, Joe. That's awesome.
awesome.
That's great, Joe. Thank you.
idea.
I'm gonna light again. Okay, so
We're just throwing you a fastball, it's okay. You know, it's-
I'm pretty quick. So, any which way, so I think really the next step is, after the interview process with Ed, is we gotta start talking about what the scope is. So
Right.
I think, you know, Ed should maybe come back in another work session or whatnot and show us the scope for the grant, you know, the original scope, and then maybe come up with some concepts or some other studies
Yeah.
and get everyone's input, so then everyone can decide the expanded scope, and what scope is the one we're going with here.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
I can refine his numbers,
Yeah.
That'll- I'm
Well,
sure
I mean,
will work with us here and.
The proposal says that he's going to work on up to three alternatives, so that's part of the scope of the proposal that's before you, 3 alternatives.
So the things that I asked about are because I don't fund such things. They're just things that I use in the Coast Guard.
Yep.
Do those things create, are these huge asks financially that will require a dramatic change in the scope?
I mean, I think it's, you know, it's mostly Ed's thing, it's design, I mean, I'm thinking it's not.
In order to accommodate the larger, you know, cruise-type vessels, and not even getting into creating additional docks for fireboats and police boats, I think my rough, you know, preliminary sketches indicate it would almost triple the square footage of the surface of the pier. The pier might have to be wider, certainly to handle the lateral loads of a vessel, a larger vessel. It would have to be a more substantial structure. It would be further out in the river, so we'd have to deal with ice issues, you know, more intensively than we
Right.
would if it's closer in. So I would, you know, work with Joe and with Valerie and, you know, see what the fee might have to be, and we could talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
I
Okay.
think the important thing is just to make sure we all kind of go the direction of the pier that everyone wants,
Yeah.
and whatever needs to
Right.
accommodate. So before we just jump off and go in one direction and design maybe what's not.
Well, there's a lot of, I'm sure everybody has ideas.
Yeah.
Those are just, you know, I have one perspective. It's narrow, it's about public safety, and as it pertains to the river and the people on it.
Yeah.
But there are other issues, there are other concerns, other stakeholders.
Yeah.
So
So really, this is about being, Mr. Weinstein seems to have excellent credentials, and he's been before this board before, and I've been very comfortable with his work in the past, so I would
Yeah.
say I would be happy to have him participate.
here.
I think that's all of us.
Are you all right with that?
Victoria?
Oh, sure, yes. you're eminently qualified. You've been designing docks since before I was born, so thank you very much. Valerie,
know
while
what?
we're on the subject of the docks, the election has come and gone, and the governor was supposed to give us some sort of update on our grant application for the actual construction of this fantastic
Yes,
design we're
because-
considering.
And none of the consolidated funding applications have been announced at this point. So
All right, so we'll just wait on Albany. Thanks.
So Valerie, can you just refresh our memories? How much is the grant application? How much is the design
the
allocation
design was
of that?
for $43,000.
Okay.
The total project, of which $23,500 was coming from the state, or $22,500. What? Yeah, that included permitting, design, engineering, construction drawings. And then we submitted a grant for asking for the state to fund $300,000 for a total $600,000 dock.
And could you give us if everything goes according to plan, which it's already not as far as the Albany grant, but that's not essential at the moment anyway. What would be the timeline? I don't know if Ed has an idea of how long obviously you're not going to build a dock in January, but what is
Right.
your
Well,
idea for planning?
Once we've, I assume the public process and engaging with stakeholders would take us through the spring. If we had a sort of a plan approved in the spring, I think we'd be fortunate to be able to start construction in the spring of the following year, because the regulatory process, you have to figure at least 6 months and probably closer to a year. It's the Corps of Engineers, DEC.
So best case scenario would be spring 2016.
Correct.
Before you could start building it?
Yes.
So, and once you start building it, how long before the Queen Mary can unload?
Construction wouldn't take that long. Probably looking at a 3 to 4 month construction period.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
Really?
Good.
Manuel? Really?
I don't know anything about docks or boats, so I'm
So we're in
curious
luck.
on that end. So.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
As long as we don't have to turn it down because he's with you longer. Okay, so, part two of tonight, Leo's gonna give us a presentation. He's our chief architect at GDC. He's gonna give us a presentation on the park plan and how that's coming along. He's brought in some details and whatnot, so there's a presentation to go through here. And I know Leo's been working pretty extensively with Valerie, Henry, and other technical staff to refine some of these details and have some alternatives to look at. So I'm going to turn it over to Leo. Take the microphone.
Hello, so my name is Leo Torres, and like Joe said, I'm Chief Architect over at Ginsberg Development Companies. And unlike the previous presentation, I hope you don't hold it against me that I work for a developer.
Sorry, you have to leave.
So what we're looking at here today, this is the overall site plan for the Harbor Square Park. So I just want to show you the overall plan first, and then we can get into, we have various details or blow-ups at the various areas showing more information. So essentially, this is our site. This is where the building and the parking lot would be located. Obviously, here you can see we have Sing Sing Hill, and this is the Hudson River. Over here we have the train station, the railroad tracks, and the train station is roughly here. And then we have our overpass, which leads down into the site. So what we tried to do here is we really tried to create a park which invited people into the, well, actually, before I get to that, I just want to say this site design here represents the combination of a few meetings we've had thus far with, for example, the village manager, with Val, and as well with the parks, the superintendent of parks, Henry. So this design does take into account comments that they made, and we tried to address those comments, and I think we did a good job of it. So when you arrive at this site, what we were trying to do here, right from the beginning, we have what we call the park entry, right? And so this is below the overpass. So you can see we were trying to make some improvements, not just to below the overpass, but also we were trying to create the first entrance at the street, you know, so trying to prepare people for this entrance. As soon as you get off the stairs, here are the existing stairs, the existing elevator is roughly there, and the idea is that as soon as you get off the stairs, you're welcomed or greeted to the, to the Ossining waterfront and this Harbor Square Park. So this is the first component, which is again below the overpass. Then we have these paths, this path, which would take you to what we're calling the Performance Circle, where we would have, there's one sculpture here, which we were calling the Gateway Sculpture, and here is the existing pier. Then we have this walk, which meanders north around the edge of the promenade. We have these green areas, so this would be a green lawn, there would be trees and what have you in there. We have to keep some of it open because we do have fire access in this area right here, but essentially it would still be a lawn. It has a structure beneath it so that way fire truck could drive onto it, but it would essentially look like a lawn. And then we would have plantings, what have you, around the building to soften the edge of that building. And then as you get around to the point, we would have what we call what we're calling Point Park, and this would be another sculpture located at this point. Then finally that wraps around the point, and we get to here where the path continues along the side of the building, and it connects back to the street.
What's the bump out?
I'm sorry, here?
Yeah, right there. There's a bump.
We had to make a bump out here in order to make way for. We have there's parking in this corner right here, so it's sort of the way that the site works out.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is the bank to the Kill. So the idea for the bank along the Kill is that this would be planted with hardy grass and hardy grasses, sort of decorative, which would stabilize the soil and also look quite attractive. Then we have over here, right before you get to this path, we were trying to create a little node, and you can see we have dashed in this area here, these two dashed lines, with the hope that at some point we hope we'd be able to develop, this promenade and continue it north along the Ossining waterfront.
Nice.
And if we walk back down to the Performance Circle and continue south, what we have here is we located a vending kiosk with a restroom in this structure here. And again, we have more details, and I'll get to those sheets. And then as we continue further, going back to the street, we were introducing a playground here. And then what we also wanted to do, we were hoping that we might be able to connect our promenade here. We have two dashed lines here, and we were hoping we'd be able to connect the promenade. Currently, there's an existing fence, which is covered in sort of dead ivy, and it's really rather awful looking. And we had always intended on removing that fence. And what we're hoping we could do is we're hoping we can connect that path to the I guess this is the town property down here. So that way the promenade isn't just this piece, but it continues along the rest of the Ossining waterfront.
Nice.
Okay.
Has there been any outreach to the town or to, and is that fence, who owns that fence?
I believe the town owns the fence.
Yes, the town
And
does.
and so we wanted to we'll replace it in kind if the town wants to keep the fence with just something prettier, but we were hoping we'd be able to take it down back as far as we could because they do have storage, boat storage close to the water, which needs to remain fenced off. But what we'd like to do is take it down back to that boat storage and at a minimum be able to landscape that area so it doesn't become this visual barrier, but it's something more inviting and beautiful and continues the waterfront down to the town. So this is something we discussed with Henry as well as with Val. We wanted to discuss it with you all first.
The town board.
We wanted to discuss it with you all first,
Yeah.
just to get your feedback on it. We think it's a good idea to make the waterfront one continuous waterfront. That'd be something that's pretty amazing.
Have you guys designed the area with the actual kiosk and the restrooms into
Yes.
Yeah. What does it look like?
I'll get to it. I have it here.
Huh?
Slides.
He's got more slides.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I've got a lot more slides.
Because if you made it look like a lighthouse, it could be the Ossining Lighthouse outhouse where people are coming and going all the time. Just trying to help.
I hear you. Well, so since you asked, this was the design that we were going for with
Yeah, that's
with the kiosks.
Yeah.
We were trying to go for sort of, you know, something that would play off of the buildings that we're currently building there, but also was smaller in scale to relate better to the park and had more of really, you know, a park building feel. So this is one of the elevations. You know, metal roof, similar to what we'd be doing at the Harbor Square restaurant, and siding and detailing similar again to what we'd be doing at the Harbor Square restaurant, which again is similar in style to what we're doing at Harbor Square, the Harbor Square Apartments. And then here is the floor plan. So the idea being that this could be a vending space for some vendor of choice. This could even become, you know, open to the public for as vending machines, or it could be part of the you know, whoever's chosen, whatever's chosen here to provide, you know, whatever kind of snacks or even kayak rentals. And then we have a unisex toilet here, and we have water fountains here. All right, and then it's not shown on this plan, but on the previous plan, we also provided for, you know, this is the front of the vending kiosk. So the idea being that as people come into the park or they're in the performance circle, everyone can see that the vendor's there and it's open for business. And also we provided a path around it, as well as a couple of benches, so if people buy a snack, they can sit down and enjoy the day and eat, you know, right there.
The idea of that entertainment space is that there will be
Yes.
community gatherings for live music and fun
Yes.
stuff like that. But there's one unisex toilet.
Well, we have another unisex toilet that would be available in the restaurant, which is actually you can see the path right there, and that path connects directly to another unisex toilet, which is available for public use. Okay.
I also think for larger events, and I don't know how the village has handled it thus far, in the temporary park, with a couple events down there, if you've got the Porto Johns or whatever else you've done, but I think for large, this is more of a, you know,
Everyday use.
a spot use, but I think for a larger event, you probably also want to, you know.
Bring a honey wagon in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
additional facilities along the south property edge, so.
Right. I mean, you always have to bring in additional facilities. Even we frequent, my family and I frequent the Kensico Dam Park, and when they have big events, I mean, they have a number of toilets there. It's a big park, and when they have events, they bring in, you know, a dozen or two. You know, I think typically about a dozen porta johns.
How many public permanent restroom spaces are there at Kensico Park, do you know?
Kensico has two. It has a men's and a women's,
Right.
and I believe it has 3 toilets in each, so 3 fixtures in each porta john.
And how many fixtures would be in the unisex one?
And the unisex is just it's a single fixture. It's a sink and it's a toilet, but we have 2 of them.
Yeah. Is it possible? Oh, there's 2 of them in the kiosk.
There's one in the kiosk
And
and
one
there's
somewhere
one
else.
that's yes.
Is it possible, as a thought, to make the vending space maybe smaller and make the restroom area in the kiosk more of it? Like, you see where the restroom is? You
Yes.
see the space right next to it on the left of it?
Yes.
If you close that and it also became a restroom, then you would have 2
Right.
right there.
I-
And they could both be unisex,
Right.
because I don't know if you've ever been to a place where there's a men's room and a ladies' room. There's never a line at the men's room, but the women, it goes around the block. And if they're both unisex, that would solve that a little bit.
A little bit. Then we just have to wait too.
Yeah, we're not good at that.
Well, so yes, that's something that's definitely possible. The reason we didn't do that here is because we felt that, you know, the vending area was already kind of tight, and we thought that the vending, depending upon who takes this here, they may require some backspace. So is it a possibility? Yes.
Okay.
But it
Something
also
to think
depends
about,
upon
'cause
yeah.
I think that having public restrooms are a really good thing.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to start. This is the blow up of the entrance to the park, what we're calling, you know, the Harbor Square entrance. So here you can see this is the overpass. These dashed lines represent the extents of the overpass. And so what we were proposing here, so first of all, when you get off again, as I said, here goes the elevator, here goes the stair, here's the existing curb cut. So what we were proposing is that we would first create this paved entrance into the park as a crosswalk. So here goes your street. This is Westerly, right? And this paving would be in the same vein as what we're proposing at the Harbor Square Apartments parking. So that way it all looks of the same language.
Ties in.
Ties in, right. And so then what we wanted to do is we wanted to really dress this area up now, which is, it's a highway overpass. It's pretty difficult to dress up a highway overpass. So what we were proposing to do was make this sort of, it's under the overpass. This is your north, right? Here goes your north arrow. So what that means is the sun is going to run this way, okay? In the summertime, it breaks 180 degrees, all right? But that's only in the summertime. So what's going to happen is that this area in here is going to be in shade most of the year. And so we really can't put plantings under there. So the idea for this space under here was, well, we bring as many plantings as we could out from underneath the overpass, which is here and here, these two corners. But underneath here, the idea was, well, let's try to make it something that's always going to look beautiful and doesn't rely on sun. So what we did instead was we did a sort of a river rock garden, all right? So the idea being that we would have these large boulders and we would have these river stones, which would be embedded in the concrete, and there would be some artistic play with how that's made, but it would always look beautiful. And another thing we wanted to do was, what we're doing here is we have these stone slab benches.
Nice.
The idea being that when there are commuters coming and say it's raining or it's incredibly warm on a summer day, they can wait under here while the ferry is coming by.
There's a pencil-shaped rectangle. Yeah, right there.
Okay. These guys are the existing stanchions or abutments, overpass abutments.
Okay.
And so what we're proposing for these guys, so we have basically 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. And so we wanted to do something more than just paint them. We could just paint them, but the steel which supports the overpass, the steel beams, they are core 10 steel, which rusts. And so what happens is we paint them, they rust and drip all over the face of the stanchions anyway, and we'd be back to painting them constantly. And so what we wanted to do is we were hoping the village would be interested in perhaps engaging in a few select artists and having a competition to come with a mural that would it would take into account this rusting pattern, and it would continue to look beautiful. It wouldn't have to be painted consistently and still look beautiful. Mm-hmm. So this was an idea. We'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 murals, and again, it would be sort of a competition, which could be just to selected artists.
Like a jury show,
artists.
and the winners get their thing back.
Right, and they
Which
be
an event in itself.
Exactly, which would bring more people down to the waterfront to see what an amazing thing the village has done here and provided for them. We could get proposals from different artists, and it would be juried. So then the other thing we wanted to do. So here we have the what we've tried to do here is straighten this whole area out, like really clean it up. This is the existing parking space, and so what we did here currently we have concrete that sort of does this, and concrete that sort of does that, and this walks to there, and then it walks to here, and then you're on the concrete and you walk into the park that way. So what we've done here is we've tried to clean up this whole space and really tried to dress it up and formalize it a bit more, for the entrance into the park. What we'd like to do in regards to the walkway paving is we'd like to do a sort of a unit paver, and I can show you what we're thinking. But basically pavers as opposed to asphalts or concrete. We don't like asphalt because we don't think asphalt is nice enough for such an amazing place. It is porous, which is good. Now some concerns were raised by, for example, Henry doesn't like the pavers because they require maintenance, and they do require maintenance. They require every few years. It's easy maintenance. It's just standard laborer work, but it's going to require someone every few years to pull up a paver, maybe put some sand down, tamp it down, put the paver back down, and tap it down. But it never really has to be replaced.
Nice.
And again, it does require maintenance, but concrete concrete inevitably requires maintenance. It requires replacement, and when it requires replacement, it's a costly replacement because you're dealing with welded wire fabric and sub bases and what have you.
Not porous.
And not porous. Furthermore, this is porous. So the beautiful thing. So we have pavers in the. I live in a pre-war building, and we paved our entire site, all our walks with pavers. The beautiful thing about pavers is because they're porous, you never really get ice on them.
Right.
And so, I mean, don't get me wrong. There will be areas where you will have ice. For example, the overpass will drip onto an area, and there will be some ice there. But for the most part, you don't get ice. And the reason you don't get ice is because when it snows, right, and then it warms up. As it warms up, the water drains through the pavers, and then when it gets cold again, whereas if it was solid concrete, that water would freeze. In this case, there's no water to freeze because it's percolated through the pavers. So again, it's just nice because you don't have to use nearly as much salt as if it was concrete.
You mentioned snow.
Yes.
How is snow removal on these? I know concrete, and blacktop's really easy to shovel.
Yes.
How is snow removal affected by having the pavers?
Well, if they're kept, in at least to, let's put it like this: the pavers in my
Yeah.
building, they've moved. They have definitely moved, and we use plows, we use shovels, and we use snow blowers on them, and it's just fine.
It's fine. There you
And
go.
and we don't have a chipped paver on our entire site.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
So finally, this is an existing area for storage here that it exists currently today, and there's a fence right around here. So what we're proposing is simply to replace this fence with a privacy fence, something that would be decorative. You can't see through it, and this could become storage for the town, possibly storage for the kayak vendor. And we've added an additional doorway, a gateway on this side. So if there are items stored under here which are used for events, they could easily be taken from here directly into the park.
Who owns that property? The village currently does?
Yes. I believe the village currently uses it for storage. There's some. Yeah. Okay. And so again, these benches, stone slabs, and these benches would be set in the decorative boulders.
Could you just go back for one quick second? There are 4 stanchions. I only see 3 of them. Could you reiterate which they are?
So there's 1, 2, 3, and I was pointing to the surfaces where the murals would be. So we'd have 1 mural here, 1 mural on this side, 1 mural on this side, and 1 mural on this side. So
And
4 murals.
Okay.
Right. So one is a double-sided one.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's take a break for a tape.
So the other thing that we wanted to do here is we were providing on this side, the idea was to have a sort of a vine fence on this side. And then in front of that we would have plantings and greenery. And the idea being that the sun is going to run in this direction. So this can be a nice fence, and these would have to be low light vines. But again, it's to dress up this whole entrance into the park. So I wanted to show you, we also have an elevation of a stanchion, what we were thinking. So this is one of the stanchions. And right here, we're just showing a sketch of what it could be. So the idea for this sketch was simply that we have these decorative boulders. There's the stone slab bench embedded into those boulders with supports as needed. And then this would be, sort of a contemporary take on, like a grass to sort of act as a backdrop. But this is just one sketch. The idea was that, again, that there could be a competition held and artists could come up with some ideas for these stanchions.
Graffiti.
All right. So the next area is the performance circle. So what we were trying to do here is we were trying to make an area where the village could hold events. We could have a bandstand in the center, but we wanted to make it something special, something decorative. So here are the base. Here is the base of the gateway sculpture, right? So the idea for this space is that it would be comprised of concrete panels divided up with terrazzo spacers or strips. So the terrazzo strips would be, they make them in various metals, stainless steel, brass, what have you. We could pick that later. And then so the concrete and terrazzo would create this sort of pattern in between these radials, and these radials would create a distinction with the concrete panels, in that they are more like cobblestones, so they're a rougher material. So you get this dichotomy of textures creating this performance circle.
Is
And
it
then-
covered? Is
Is
it a
it-
covered space?
It's not covered, it's open.
Okay.
It is an open space. And then at the center of this, we have here what we thought could be, sort of a bronze plaque embedded into the concrete, which could somehow speak to the history of Ossining or the significance of this place in Harbor Square Park. So this would become the performance circle, and we would also have. So we're showing we have waterproof outlets there. And then we have these seat walls. So again, for performances, people can sit on these seat walls here and watch a performance, or someone can just come and sit at the seat wall and dangle their legs over the other side and marvel at the amazing view that Ossining has. And in these seat walls, we would also have waterproof outlets for whatever functions or performances might be there.
From time to time, over the many years we've been talking about this, I have brought up the need for lighting for that space, and the ability to have sound system in that space, electricity,
That's
whatever.
certainly something we could do. We do have lighting, so
Theatrical lighting, lighting
Right.
that can be focused down onto the space so
Right.
that it's actually a performance space.
right. Yeah, we'd have to think about that, how to make that one happen, because typically you would put that sort of thing on a structure. I suppose we could put it on the sculpture. There's something we could.
That's from behind, though.
Oftentimes we do that. Well, we definitely have electrical outlets. We also have lights, street lights. So we were proposing, and if I go back, so you can see the symbol here. We have a street light, and there's another symbol here for the street light, and another one there. And so what we were proposing was there would be a series of street lights, which would lead you to the performance circle. And then beyond the performance circle, we would have solar-powered lighted bollards that would
Run the whole length.
line the walkway directly adjacent to the river. the
It
promenade.
doesn't answer the issue that I brought
No,
up. So
the
where
lighting we
those-
would have to bring in.
Where those streetlights are, you could add some form of, some way to light from the poles that are
Yeah,
surrounding
we
that
should be able
area.
to do that. Yeah, I think we could do that.
Yeah.
Actually, we could even add speakers to those too.
Speakers, yeah.
You need to do that stuff, if we're
Yeah.
gonna
Need a
call
grid.
that a performance space.
Right.
Because
No,
the
we
real performance space that was originally planned disappeared somewhere along the line, and so this is the replacement.
We could definitely, you're right, we could put something on the streetlights. We have to figure out how to do it in the most aesthetically pleasing way. We picked pretty nice lights, and you'll
Yeah,
see
I
them.
see them.
Yeah. But speakers are easy enough to put on these as well. We might be able to have a fixture that is sort of like a secondary fixture which is attached. Right, that's another possibility. All right, we'll definitely address that. And I just also wanted to point out here, you can see we have these grading lines. And the idea for the grading here was that so the performance circle is lower, the outer edge of the performance circle is low. We've sort of mounded up to the center to create that sort of bandstand feature in the center. And then this grading lines, we're grading the lawn here
Are you talking about a
up
hump?
higher. It has a slight hump in the center, so that way you could have a featured bandstand right in the center. It's not it's not like that. It's just from well-
If we do Medea, you're gonna have,
no, it's not that much. It's it can't be more than a quarter inch per foot anyway.
Because if you put scenery out, it'll
Right,
slide
it's
right
very
up.
slight. No, it's what you would have on
Tough for
on a
cloud
sidewalk
dancers
anyway.
too.
But we also have this grading at the lawn, where it's grading up as we move away from the performance circle, so that way people can maintain their view and their vantage to that performance circle.
it's also good for draining the property
And it's
into
also-
the Hudson as opposed to vice versa.
Very nice.
Okay, and then as we continue down, so we already looked at the kiosk,
Yes, that.
right? Here goes the performance circle. Now here goes the playground. So we reviewed this with the parks superintendent, Henry, And this was he suggested a vendor to us, and the vendor came with what was a really quite nice playground, and we do have a view of that right there.
Are those solar panels or just?
No, those are just roofs.
What are
shed
those
roofs.
things?
It has slides, it has climbing rocks for kids, it has climbing stools, it has all kinds of climbing things and walking things for kids.
No, I mean the things that they go up and then they look like solar panels.
No, these are just shed roofs. They're part of the design. They're just shed roofs. They're
What-
architectural and decorative.
What's the intended age for this playground?
This playground is from 5 to 12. Age 5 to 12.
This was specifically, one of the things that Henry was concerned about is twofold. One, we didn't want we wanted to have a very different park experience for kids, different than what you see down at the Angle Waterfront Park, so that you have two totally different types of park experiences. And secondly, there are not a lot of older children's activities or park sets throughout the village, and so he wanted to try to promote that a little bit more for the older ranges. And as we all, the other thing too is that a lot of times you find that the younger kids go older, the other kids play sets pretty quickly. So that was sort of the aim at this particular playground.
Thank you.
And we were really trying to dress up this playground. So, for example, you can see here's a section through the seat wall. So wrapping this side of the playground, we have a difference in elevation, again, because this grade is sloping up as it moves away from the performance circle. And so we have a difference in elevation. And so what we were proposing here was this sort of seat wall with the security fence. We have one entrance in and out. And we're really trying to make it something attractive. Here's an elevation of the overpass. And so the idea here is that, this would be the edge of the playground, or this wall right here. And this is here goes your elevation tag, looking at that wall. And so again, what we were trying to do here is we were trying to dress up that elevation, because right now it's just, it's very utilitarian, it's a concrete overpass. And so we wanted to make it something more playful and enjoyable and beautiful to look at for the children that are going to use this playground, as well as for anyone who's going to visit Harbor Square Park.
Cool.
And here goes an elevation of that wall as well, of this wall. So here's a detail of the paver. So you would have your pavers sitting on top of the proper subbase with concrete curbs, anchoring them in place on either side. Here's a detail of the seat wall. So the idea for these seat walls is that they would be a cut, stone, which would match the riprap. So it would almost appear as if though the riprap wall itself was extending up into a seat.
Nice.
What is that? That looks so very different than the playground seat wall elevation above it. What am I looking at when I'm
This
looking
one
at
here?
one? Yeah, what's that?
This is an elevation of this wall. So this is that section of that wall.
And what's that made out of?
So it's going to be
vertical
a masonry unit with a masonry top, so people can sit on.
What's the vertical line fence looking thing?
The fence we went with a very classic playground security fence. So it's just it'll be a powder coated metal. It won't rust. It'll look attractive.
Is it?
Aluminum. I think I believe it will be an aluminum, a powder coated aluminum fence.
It's visible through it. It's not.
Oh
it's
yes,
not, okay.
yes.
And it's not very high, too.
Yes. So one thing we wanted to do is generally we kept this height overall. So when you're on this side of the park, the height of this fence is never greater than 4 feet. So if you're standing anywhere looking at this fence, it's never greater than 4 feet. On the inside, it'll be greater because again, there's an elevation change, right? But from the outside, it'll always be a maximum of 4 feet as it walks down with the site, which you can see here, it steps down, while the seat wall remains the same height.
So I'm still getting my bearings a little bit. The playground itself is sunken. Is that
Yes.
what I'm understanding? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. Because we have existing grades to contend with, and we wanted to raise this in order for this to be more functional relative to the performance circle.
How's that going to be affected in terms of drainage, because it's sunken?
It's not sunken beyond the promenade, so it meets the promenade.
Got it. Okay.
Meets the promenade.
Perfect.
It's just sunken relative to the grade on the other side because we raised that
I
grade.
understand.
That grade's artificially raised.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm clear.
Okay.
Good.
And so
Very
here's
nice.
here's just a detail of the bollard, and I'll show you a picture of this bollard, but it's a solar powered bollard.
Yeah.
So this was the bench we were proposing. So we thought we weren't sure necessarily what color yet, but we really like the sculpturalness, the sculptural quality of this bench, and we think it ties in well to the architecture and the language of the buildings, as well as the other site features that we're selecting. So here goes, for example, this is the lighted bollard. It's solar powered, so it has a little solar panel on top. And then this would be the street light.
What's the blue thing up on the right?
This is trash can.
Thank you.
Trash can and president.
It's always good to have.
Yes, always good to have. But again, some people might put something really ugly. We were trying to think about every part and every component of the park,
Very
and
good.
we really wanted it to be attractive. So here go the pavers. So this is what we're proposing for the walkways. So it's this hexagonal paver. It's really sort of a classic shape for a walkway. And then these would be the pavers in the crosswalk, 2 colors, in these sizes. And then this is that cobblestone paver that I was discussing before. And these are the terrazzo strips, which would be embedded in the concrete in the performance circle to create that score pattern, just to dress it up. It's really a beautiful effect. And then finally we get to the sculptures. So for the sculptures, this is a portion of the rendering that we had previously presented quite a while ago now.
Right.
And so this has always been sort of the idea of that sculpture. But this is very rough. The artist that we would employ to do this sculpture, his name is Peter Lundberg, and this is a sample of his work. So the idea being that it really is a monumental sculpture meant as a gateway, and sort of, again, this is the artist, another work of the artist. So in sort of that kind of language, and the idea being that it creates a marker point on the water of Harbor Square. And finally, this is the fireman sculpture. Really quite a beautiful sculpture. And this sculpture, the idea was to locate this at Point Park. So Point Park.
Out the far end.
Have you
Yes.
contacted the sculptor?
Martin has been in contact with the sculptor.
Good. Because I gave him that
Yes.
information.
Yes.
Looks like McDonald's and the Flintstones.
I guess I'm. What are you proposing something with the archway? Are we
This-
making a sculptural selection here? What's because
We
this
just
is
wanted-
quite a
we-
variation.
This is really open for discussion at this point. This was always the concept. This
right.
concept.
That I
of-
recognize.
Yes.
That I
But
like.
Yes.
The middle one looks like McDonald's and the Flintstones.
Well, I think the next two are the same thing, just
Fast food.
reversed.
Yes.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
different views.
Yeah, it's just different views of the same. This was just, I presented these to you just so you can get an idea of what this particular artist who we're proposing to do this sculpture has
What
done.
was wrong with the one in the rendering?
Nothing. No, I'm not saying we're going to do this design.
Oh.
I'm saying the artist that we've selected has done this sculpture. This is just a sample of his work.
Oh, okay.
That's all. But
I'm
this,
just curious.
yes.
That one's been kicking around for a while. Martin sent me a picture of it a long time ago, and I could never answer it because I'm not quite sure how to say what I think, but
The rough one.
I
you
think
mean?
it's out of character for the entire project,
Okay.
so.
Really?
Which
Yeah.
one? This
The
one?
first one?
No,
No, the middle one.
Yeah. well,
Oh, but do you
these
like
two.
this?
Yeah. I like that one.
Okay.
Relative to the other two.
Relative to the other one, yes.
The one that's been in all the renderings.
Yes.
Was that designed by the artist that you're intending to commission for it, or was that designed by you or
That
Martin?
was designed in conjunction with the artist. So that's been a
Okay.
dialogue back and forth between us and him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives he can vary from it to some degree because it is a work of art, but
Yes.
probably not to the degree of the
Not to that
example being
degree, no.
shown.
This is
Yeah,
just a
that's
sample
a
of his
good
work. Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten used to the first one.
Yeah.
And the fireman thing, I get that it's red. Okay,
The
I have
flame.
an amazing grasp of the
It's a
obvious.
it's a phoenix
It's
rising.
It's red, but what does it have to do with being a fireman?
It's a phoenix rising from the
Yeah.
flames, and it was it was given to, dedicated to the 75th anniversary of the volunteer fire company in Alijo, our sister village.
Oh, so someone else has one of these?
That one is in Alijo.
Oh,
It's
that,
behind Village Hall in Alijo.
So we're having one
So-
just like it,
When we were there to sign the Protocols of Sister Villagehood,
right?
the mayor there and I talked about that because everyone who was with us loved that sculpture. It was just really, it's quite startlingly beautiful. And at night, it's lighted from the bottom.
I like that,
So
so
it
we have
really
one for
does
each.
look like it's rising from
So-
the flames.
For the other one then, because they were talking about a sister village in Ecuador, so your village in Ecuador is gonna have to have one of those. So you might wanna call the guy and have him take a look at it.
Speaking of which, is lighting of the sculptures included in this park design?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Yes, we show uplighting on them.
Okay.
So you can see there's one there, and there's one there, and it's hard to see because the scale is so small, but we do have lighting shown in here.
Okay.
Good.
Okay?
Yes, very nice.
Great.
And Bob, if you, Bill probably has a million more pictures of the firefighter sculpture, but there's actually a detail of a flame that's cut
There
into
is.
the
Oh,
steel,
cool.
so it is very
Yeah.
clear who it's
Oh,
honoring.
okay.
And there's also a plaque, which I believe is in brass letters at the base, which talks about the 200th anniversary, and it
Yes.
says it in both English and Portuguese because of our
Yeah,
sister village.
I love that. I think that's really neat. I wasn't actually joking, you know, I know we are talking about having a sister village in Ecuador,
Yes.
and maybe,
It doesn't require partnership sculptures, though, I don't think.
hmm?
I don't think it requires sister sculptures, though.
That'd be a neat idea. though.
Yet.
But
Yeah, so when we talked about this, the mayor there agreed, and the sculptor agreed, that we could use the same sculpture to honor the Portuguese community here, as well as the 200th anniversary of our department.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the whole project sat on a shelf for a very long time, so it's now the 202nd anniversary.
Close enough for jazz.
Yes, or 204th by the time it's built. But it could just give the date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Good.
So
Thank you for your presentation and for putting up with
we're gonna
all the
submit these
questions and interruptions.
drawings, we'll submit these drawings to the state as the plans for the park. And then we'll deal with, I guess we'll come back with some additional renderings of the upper sculpture, for further comment from the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions
Sure.
in regards to that.
Makes everything else very dark. If we're done with it, are you done? Turn that off and turn the lights on. Thank you.
In regards to the lights, I think at one point we were talking about having, and what we did in Main Street going all the way down to the train station, and all the streetscape that we have done. You know, we have a particular type of lights, of street lights, the lamps itself. I thought maybe, and I'm not sure how the board will feel, maybe have some sort of integration within that. I was looking at the photos and the samples that you saw. It's not really there. It doesn't really tie to what we've been trying to do.
We integrated the lights, to the town park. So that
Okay.
so we're trying to create this almost seamless waterfront
Okay,
esplanade. So if you actually look at the town park,
got
the
it.
town park has very similar lights
Okay.
to what is being proposed in the village.
Also, the lights that we used going down Main and Secor tie it to Main Street up the hill, not necessarily to the waterfront park.
No, I know, because at one point we were talking about, you know, try to do the whole thing.
And doing it all the way
there,
down
all the way
Westerly
down
Road.
Westerly Road. But my other question is those lights are gonna be LEDs
Yes, so
Okay.
those were LED lights.
as well?
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay.
Good work, Leo.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, come on, there's more, Joe.
Okay, so I think, we're good. Anything else?
Is that it?
That's it? Thank you,
Okay,
Joe.
good.
Nice job,
Thank you
guys.
both.
Thank you.
Yeah. How often do I tell you that? Okay?
We're getting better, right?
We're really happy.
Every time I'm here, you say it.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you, and I'll ask Valerie Monastra, our planner, to continue and introduce our next topic, which is updating on Hudson Steps. So, Valerie?
Before you start, okay, I have to say something. Hudson Step is a lovely project, and we're excited about it, but I live next door to it, and therefore I have to recuse myself at this time, because since I have business with these guys, it's not fair for me to sit on the dais here or vote on anything to do with this project. So I'm going to go sit over there and take off my trustee hat and put on my just a guy in the village hat.
Thank you.
So, I have Bruce Lozito here tonight, who's the attorney for the applicant. As you know, the village board passed a resolution last village board meeting to hold a public hearing on the special permit for the Hudson Step project. And so I asked Bruce to come tonight to sort of, sort of summarize where we are with this project, and also, bring the board as well as the community, sort of reminding everybody what this project's about, what's included in the project, and then take any questions this board has on the project itself, and then how it relates to the special permit.
Thank you, Valerie. Being low tech, how should I set up here?
Where it is now is probably good because you want the camera to pick it up as well. So if you turn it back to where it was, we can still see it. And if anyone who can't see it should move to the other side of the table, I think. Can you see it, Chrissy? Can you? Yeah, that's better.
Looks like I can, but I guess
Yeah.
can you put the board up and I can,
Yeah.
and it's not, yeah, I can see it.
Good.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Bruce.
Thanks. Busy night.
Oh, yeah.
Lots going on.
Good night.
Nice to see. Ken Bruce Lozito for Austin Land LLC. With me tonight also is Ed Vogel from Warshauer, Marucci Warshauer Architects, and Fred Wells from Tim Miller Associates, our planner, and also landscape architect.
Bruce, could,
You want to use the mic, or so if you want to move the table,
Take it right off.
maybe,
I mean, the mic.
yeah, maybe you just move it closer to you, because I want to make sure everybody in the audience can hear what you're saying.
Okay.
How's that working for you?
I think that'll work.
Sound like Tina Fey. John, sounds like Tina Fey. How's that working for you?
Okay. The project is Hudson Step, which, as I mentioned last week, we had done a presentation for you back in September of 2013, at which time the draft environmental impact statement had just been accepted by the planning board, and we were in the comment period for that. And at that time, I had introduced a somewhat new and improved version of the plan that had been in circulation for about a year before that time, and which was updated and improved with the input of village staff and the planning board in early discussions of the project. But just to give orientation before I begin, the Hudson Step site is located here. Here's your Main Street, here's State Street, here's Hunter Street, and James Street. So we front on 3 streets, State, James, and Hunter, and we're right at the foot of Broad Avenue. And as you know better than I, this area of the village is fairly high-density, mixed-use, commercial, multifamily uses. As you go south of the Hudson Step site and Broad Avenue, it becomes more purely residential, if you will, 1, 2, and small multifamily developments. So we're in somewhat of a transitional location between the downtown, village center, and more residential areas to the south. And it makes it a particularly important site in that respect. What we're talking about tonight is a special permit for the development, which your board is being asked to approve, which would permit an increase in density on the site, which thereby enables the planning board to grant density bonuses for various amenities that we're providing in conjunction with the project. And I'll go through those as part of this presentation. But I wanted to orient you to the location. One of the aspects of a special permit is whether a use is compatible with the area, in harmony with the area, and would enhance future development of the area. And we think this is a unique situation where that is in fact the case. As you know now, the site is occupied by a vacant industrial building towards State Street in this portion of the site. It's been boarded up to be secured, certainly not an asset to the neighborhood in its current form. The remainder of the site, the back portion, west portion, is a already cleared former development site. So the site in its current state is not enhancing the character or in harmony with the neighborhood at all. And what we believe we're proposing would be exactly that, by proposing a 188-unit multifamily residential development that would solidify the residential aspect of the property, almost draw a border between the mixed use and the residential area below in a transitional nature. So we think it's perfectly suited for the special permit that we're requesting. When I was here last September, I reminded everyone of the original concept for the plan. I just want to do that again briefly. This is State Street at the bottom, Hunter, James here. The original proposal was 188 units in 8 buildings, which included 24 townhouses in these 2 areas of the site along Hunter and along James, and then multifamily in these remaining buildings here. That resulted in a streetscape along State Street that looks something like this, which would be the multifamily building to the north, the Smith Robinson House, which is a key feature of the development. It had townhouses, and then multifamily on James Street would have been to the left. When we reviewed this with the village staff and preliminarily with the planning board, there were some concerns about the type of development, the extent of the development, so we revisited that and came back with the plan that's essentially the current plan that we presented to you last fall, and then became the subject of the DEIS and ultimately the FEIS. So this is the plan that we're considering. I just wanted to mention, Valerie mentioned that if you want PDFs of these plans, we can certainly provide them. Just let us know, and we'll get them to you. Yes, please. This is the plan that's been an active review for the past year or so, and it's the same 188 units, but it's in 3 buildings. As you can see, we eliminated the townhouses along Hunter Street, we eliminated the townhomes along State Street, and consolidated the same number of units, smaller therefore, in the multifamily buildings. We retained a central green, as was in the other plan, but this is a little more open since the buildings around it are fewer. There's now a view shed through the property that didn't exist in the prior plan. There's green space along both Hunter Street and James Street that I think are better suited to the neighbors who are across the street and next door in both directions. And it also helps to create a green alongside of the Smith Robinson House, which had been framed in by buildings in the prior plan. As you probably know now, the Smith Robinson House is virtually surrounded by the existing industrial buildings on the south, the north, and the rear. So this will be opening up that building on 3 sides that have not been exposed in recent memory, probably for 50 to 70 years in that order. Both plans, and this one in particular, still includes the automated underground garage for about 95% of the parking, so that we were able to, with this scheme and the reconfiguration of the buildings, have a total of 62% of the site as open space, which is about 20% more than our previous plan. And similarly, the amount of building coverage is reduced by 20%. So it's a much more open, less intensive development. And that's evidenced also by the revised streetscape along State Street, where we had eliminated the townhomes and now have a central green space abutting Smith Robinson House, and was just multifamily on either end, the north and the south along James. And of course, because the buildings are perpendicular to State Street, you're getting the short end of the buildings facing that major street. And another thing that wasn't on the prior plan, we've gone through a great deal of work with the Historic Preservation Commission over the past year, and I'm happy to announce that on Monday, the commission approved a certificate of appropriateness for the renovation and restoration plans that we've developed for Smith Robinson House. Ed Vogel played an instrumental part in that. He did so much research into this building. I think he may know more about it than any other living being. And he worked very hard with our historic preservation planner, Rita Walsh, to dig into what the history had been. It's been altered so many times. The real puzzle was, what was the building, and what should we restore it to be? And one of the key elements of this new and approved version was to restore a cupola, or a lantern as some people refer to it. That did exist on the roof level, hasn't been there for I don't know how long, certainly not there now. And that's a very prominent feature, and I think it makes it a real landmark, not only for the development, but I think for the village as a whole. We have some more detailed drawings, but I wanted to show that in perspective to State Street. The other thing we did recently was to lower Building 1, to make the Smith Robinson House a bit more prominent feature of the development and stand out as, again, as a landmark and a marking place.
Bruce?
Yes.
Can you point to, as we look at the State Street visual elevation, where does Broad, what is your view if you're standing in the middle of Broad? You're looking
down.
right at
Comes
Smith
right down.
Robinson?
That must have been an intentional thing when the building was first put there, to be a focal point at the end of the
Thanks.
So it's a nice, beautiful feature to have.
It really does a huge amount. It's great.
This is the enlargement. If you've seen the building up close, I haven't spent as much time there as Ed has, but we did walk inside where you have the industrial buildings butting up against it, and it's a little bit heartbreaking to see the damage that was done. Steel rafters broken into the stone walls and what have you. There's going to be a tremendous amount of repair work to be done, but that will be done. Some of the key elements, as I mentioned, of the restoration are adding the cupola. We're going to rebuild the front porches and restore the balustrades and rails that we've best been able to determine were there in the future. We're going to reinstate the central stair. We found some old postcard was one of the sources we found in our search for what the building had looked like. We have an old photo that the Historic Preservation Commission had provided. So in combining this information and doing our own investigations of the actual building, we found what was there to some extent. We're going to replace all the windows because they've all been replaced with single pane commercial type windows. We're going to restore those with 6/6 Marvin windows, aluminum clad windows. It's really going to be quite elegant. We're going to recreate porches in the rear where now there's a building, an existing building. You can't even see this much of the rear of the building. Again, replacing all the windows, repairing all the stonework. Another important consideration was moving Building 1 back to expose the windows that are on this wall here. That was something that was asked of us early on. And again, as you're coming down State Street, this is what you'll see from an angle, and that'll be a nice calling card to what's coming as you closer approach the building. Again, other sides that are completely covered will be restored with windows, new roofing. All the woodwork has to be either repaired or replaced. So there's quite a bit of work to be done, but the end product I think is going to be quite impressive, and I think the Historic Preservation Commission is very excited to see that happen. And I think as we explained before, we're going to restore the interior as well. Typically, in these historic restorations, it's the exteriors that have the attention paid, but in this case, we're going to restore the interior also. These are the 3 floors that exist, a ground floor and then 2 floors above. These are basically the room layouts that are there now on the upper floors. They'll lend themselves to nice office spaces for live-work, we're referring to it, so the residents of the new apartments, if they like to rent an office for an accountant or an attorney or an architect or an artist or what have you, there's a conveniently located office space that's readily available to them. And in restoring this, there's some marvelous woodwork in the building. There's mahogany doors, I think they are, that are still amazingly, despite some graffiti, they've respected those things, and they haven't graffitied the mantles either. So there's some nice features that we'll be able to restore. The trim work will be cleaned, and we're going to try to bring back the interior as well. This is, in terms of the bonus density, this is one of the elements of what we're doing to get the density bonus. Another aspect of the density bonus is doing off-site improvements that benefit the village and are not necessary for the development. And we worked very closely with your staff and with the planning board to arrive at a package of improvements that would meet village needs and also be commensurate with what we're asking to have developed on the site. There are a host of several different types of improvements. There's streetscape improvements where we're doing sidewalks on both sides of Hunter Street from the south end of the project up to Secor, and we'll be building ADA compliant crosswalks. The idea is to make access to the train station or Main Street into the downtown more hospitable to both the residents of the development and residents of the neighborhood to the south. We'll be doing some additional streetscape improvements, but because they're benefiting the project, they weren't counted toward the density bonus aspect of it, like along James Street, for example, and any work that needs to be done on State. In terms of utilities, the village has some issues with both water mains in the area and sanitary sewer mains, so we're going to be relining fairly extensive sections of water main on Hunter, State, and also interconnecting State and Hunter Street along James. That should bring better service to the existing neighborhood, improved water quality and flows. We'll be videotaping all the sewer mains that front on the site. The county urges the village to address inflow and infiltration problems, so we're going to be inspecting those, and any repairs that are necessary we will be making. I think those are the off-site improvements.
Is that's Breakneck Path there that you have
yes,
there going
thank you
from
very
James?
much. There is one other. This is Breakneck Path, as it's affectionately called, but not by attorneys. From the cul-de-sac at the bottom of James Street down to Hunter is now a broken, uneven, formerly paved path. There's pipes that just outlet into a gully and cause erosion. And so this has been a major focal point of the village and in their request for off-site improvements. We'll get that drainage under control by piping it entirely. We'll be regrading, we'll be removing that blacktop, we'll be removing fences that are in disrepair, regrading it, and having proper stormwater control through there. And there's been some discussion. We put 2 alternatives in our site, in our FEIS, one of which is to just seed that regraded area and make it a grass path if people chose to walk on it. Or there's also an alternative of putting down sort of a gravel type path if the community wants a more formalized walkway there. And we thought that would be determined by the planning board when we get to final site plan approval. If this board has any preferences in that regard, we would certainly consider those.
I think whichever is the safest for people walking there in the rain or the snow or any other time of the year was a better idea.
Also, is there ideally, it would be something that could actually be used by folks who live in that neighborhood to save, if they're walking to the train, it saves them a fair amount of time from
Mhm.
having to walk all the way to the main and then back if you live on State or James. So is there a consideration of lighting it? And when you say regrading it, does it,
There might be some street poles there, because this may have been more than just a walkway at some time. It does back up onto backyards of residences, so that might be a,
perhaps motion sensor?
Maybe there are bollards. We'll talk to
Yeah.
Paul and see how that does.
that could be handled, yeah, without creating a
Thanks.
problem.
Especially now if we're gonna do new lighting. Richard, I'm directing that at you, because I know you have that ongoing list. Thanks.
So I think that now caps the offsite. So we'll take that guidance as far as wanting something that people can use. We can talk to staff about whether and how it gets lighted. I think it had to be noted that it wouldn't be ADA compliant, because it's like this, so.
Is that an obstacle to making it a legitimate
No.
I
pedestrian
don't think
pathway?
so, it's just mechanical. Yeah, pre-existing conditions.
Then would it be safer if it was, when you regraded, it's, like stepped?
It's kind of
Like-
difficult to,
Big, long, broad steps, or is,
it's very
to-
steep, yeah.
yes, I know, I've walked it. That's hence the name.
Right.
So that's what I was thinking.
We'll go out to the field again, like once, because that's like I'm not saying minor. It's clearly an important part of the project, but it's minor enough that we can go out there to the field and then kind of decide, even as the project is, under construction, and then do final, how we want to deal with that path.
I just didn't want to surprise the developer with having it suddenly become a much broader scope than you had in your mind, so that's why I bring it up now.
No, absolutely.
Right, so this has been on our radar for a long time, and ironically, I'm going out with Paul next week, and so I'm going to invite Valerie to go with us, and just because of the neighborhood concerns, and so maybe we can come up with a good plan.
Right.
Well, yeah, that would be the other thing I would want to have the neighborhood, the people that surround the path and everything else, I would think they would want to know, be a little bit more aware of what's going on,
Right,
since
well,
it's
they
going to
have,
become.
the neighborhoods have been actually notified probably about 5 or 6 times throughout this process.
Mhm.
through
Okay,
letters
good.
and stuff like that, and then all these documents have been on the website since the initial application back in like 2009, I think, something like that, so.
Okay.
So the timing is good. If we could get that staff input, we're now putting together the finalized site plans for resubmission to the planning board. So we could get that input, we can incorporate that into the plans. So that would work well. Another important aspect of the project is the green building aspect of it. And this is just a representation of a small portion of that. Again, one of the density bonus elements is to do green building, and there's criteria in your code in that respect. And we have, since we had the DEIS submitted, we did retain a specialist in lead and also energy aspects of the project, an outfit called Vidaris. And they helped us to go through a matrix that's actually included in the FEIS of what elements, lead eligible elements, could be incorporated into the project to achieve a total of 60 points, which is equivalent to a LEED Gold rating. And so we've committed to the planning board to do that, not necessarily to get the LEED certification, because that's a very onerous and expensive process that is of questionable value, but to have it be LEED eligible, shall we say. And we would also have a LEED expert report to the village that the components that we proposed had in fact been incorporated, so you know that you're getting what we said we'd give. This plan just happened to illustrate some of the things that were site related and to some degree storm related, showing things like green roofs that we're showing on a number of the buildings in certain areas, permeable pavers, that type of thing that related to stormwater. But we're really proposing a whole host of measures. The site itself is inherently eligible for LEED consideration because of its location, in close proximity to the downtown, and services, in close proximity to the train station. So there's certain things about it that by its own nature make it a LEED type of development. But in terms of building, some of the things we're going to be focusing on is energy conservation, and we've made a commitment to achieve a certain level in that regard. Water conservation is another important element. We're looking to a 30% reduction, and also some rainwater harvesting that we intend to use for irrigation purposes on the site to help further reduce water consumption. We're going to have bicycle storage for 75 bicycles. That's a LEED criteria being met. A certain percentage of the anticipated population would be have bicycle provisions. We're going to have electric car charging stations for a specified number of vehicles. 95% of the parking is going to be below grade, which is another goal in terms of reducing paved area and the so-called heat island effect that results from pavement. Maximizing open space, the inverse. One of the LEED criteria is not to exceed the allowable, where we're only required to have 15% of open space, we're going to have 62%. So we're really surpassing the criteria considerably. The roofs will be made of reflective materials, again, to address the heat island aspect of things. We'll be using low emission materials. All these things are listed. You have the findings from the planning board, the secret findings. There's a table in the end that lists all of the various components and their points that we've committed to do, totaling at 60 points. Another thing that affects the exterior, just grab another plan. There's an emphasis on the use of native plantings. We developed a plan. Now this is conceptual and was provided in the FEIS. But to meet a LEED criteria, a certain percentage of the site would have to be a native planting. So we prepared this plan to sort of illustrate that. And what it actually results in, the most obvious difference from most communities or developments, is that there's a very limited amount of mowed lawn. You'll have more no-mow areas where it's more meadow-like, and other native plantings to achieve that goal. And we're going to bring in a landscape architect to finesse this for the planning board resubmission, to try to make that as attractive as possible, because if it's not done properly, it may not be as attractive as a manicured landscape. So we're going to take extra pains to make sure that while it's native, that it is attractive, an asset to the community, and also enjoyable to the residents. Basically, the lawn areas that we could retain were in the center of the development in this teardrop, as we call it, which is a sort of a green for the neighborhood.
Could you clarify that? Because I recall when you came last year and we talked about that space, you just said it's a green for the neighborhood, but it was okay. Okay, but so when you're getting bonus density points for this, it's great environmentally, open space wise,
Right.
native plant wise, but it's not counting as public parkland, public access. It doesn't get any points for that.
That's another criteria, which raises, you keep hitting the good points.
Try.
There's been discussion about what to use the area along Hunter Street for. And there was mention of community gardens. And I know your board has been discussing that topic
Be a good location for it.
fairly recently. Where that might be an attractive thing to introduce along Hunter Street, both in terms of the neighborhood being interested in it, the broader neighborhood, the public neighborhood, and making use of an open space that didn't exist on the earlier plan that we now have as a resource. And so we'd appreciate any input you might have in that. If there's a direction you think we should go when we develop our site plans.
It's not currently one of your criteria for your bonus density
No, and
elements.
we don't need it as a criteria per se, but if the village was interested in doing that, it's something we could certainly incorporate.
How much sunlight does that get? I mean, even when the sun is in the western sky, there are high trees that, no?
Well, this site is denuded
Sunny?
pretty much. Is what?
Plenty of sun.
Plenty of sun? Speaking from this perspective, right? I guess you're coming south here, so I guess there is.
Yeah, no, 'cause we, on the same plane as your part,
Right.
we have a lot on the other side of my house that is a garden that yields about 25% of the vegetables we use in the family. So it's good. And we have a rose garden, so it's got enough sun for roses. I don't know if that's criteria.
Thanks, Bob. That's helpful. Thank you, Bob. That was helpful.
Oh, good.
So we're very receptive to that, and we'd be glad to incorporate it into the plans if that's a direction that the village would like us to take. One other thing I just want to mention is that, and I had mentioned this to you previously when I was here, we do need a single variance for the, I call it the new and improved plan, which is a height variance, which resulted from when we eliminated the townhomes and put the units in the multifamily buildings. We then had to take the parking for those townhomes, which had their own garages, and put them into the automated garage. That forced us to push this particular building down the hill a little bit, and it exposed another floor. So there are now 5 floors over a garage basement, over a basement, where 4 stories over a basement are currently permitted. The building didn't go up, it went down, so you still have the same view shed through. But we do technically need a variance. And ironically, the building in feet is only 38 feet per zoning, where 48 feet is permitted, but it's 1 story extra, so we're asking for a story variance.
That's what your ask is tonight? That's it?
That's actually the zoning board. That's the zoning board.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But I just wanted the board to be aware that that was one thing we need to get. We've met with the zoning board previously. We didn't sense any issue with it, and we're going to be back to the zoning board on Monday to see them again. So I think that's pretty much all we had. We'll be before you for a public hearing next Wednesday, and thereafter, we're hoping that your board will be in a position to approve our special permit.
Could someone clarify for me, what is the special permit that we're being asked to agree to?
You want to?
There's
Just basically, it's part of the process, so in order for a developer that has 3 or more acres of land to enter into the density bonuses, this board gives them a special permit.
So just permission to move forward with asking the planning board for the bonus density?
Well, it's really now at the point of final approvals at this
okay.
point, because, the special permit was initially presented or submitted a number of years ago, but you had to go through the whole seeker process. Now the seeker process is complete, so now they're at the point of finishing up and getting their final approvals at this point.
Okay.
So really, it's to finalize the special permit process so they can get their final approval from the planning board. And then they've gone before the Historic Preservation Commission. Now that the seeker process is done, so they've got approval there. They're in front of the zoning board on Monday, anticipating a vote that night. And so then the last 2 boards will be your board and then the planning board.
So if we have any questions, now is the time.
Well, we'll be back after the public hearing
And we have
on
another work
Wednesday. We'll be back at the next work session
Yeah.
to also take any questions.
So you have
have.
two more stabs after.
Okay.
There was one other point Valerie reminded me. We, of course, will be providing 19 affordable units as part of the development. 10% is required. All the units in the project are 1 and 2 bedroom units, and we would have a comparable mix for the affordable units.
This process it's very similar to what we went through with Avalon, where Avalon initially presented to the board, they submitted all their permits, all their applications, had to go through all the secret process, and then ultimately came before all the boards again to get their final approvals.
Bruce, my only question would be, it sounds like you're doing a lot with energy efficiency, and you said you had some green roofs, but it's not all the roofs are not green roofs?
No.
Do you have any consideration for future solar installations on some of the buildings where it would make sense?
We do.
You do?
It wasn't something we offered in the FEIS,
Mhm.
but we've been rethinking that, and I think that might be something we're going to try to introduce.
Great.
So before we get back to the planning board, we'll make that decision. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd just like to say how pleased I am with this new plan.
Thank you.
I mean, the renovation of the building is, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's really going to be it's just so different from what you came before, and you're still getting all the result, everything, the open space, the green stuff. I mean, it's much improved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate that.
Did-
It's very exciting. I like the idea that you've kept Giancarlo Giannini's garage involved in that as well.
When you've come before the planning board, I know that the schools, did you have a conversation with the school district at some point in this process? Could you update us on that?
We did. We were aware of the concerns of the school district, and in fact, we took 2 steps during this process to address that concern. One of them, the initial one, was getting rid of the 24 townhomes, which were 3-bedroom units that were very family-friendly. And then we waited sort of in the wings as the village board considered that zoning amendment to eliminate the requirement that you have 10% of the units as 3 bedrooms in the remainder of the project. And since timing is everything, just adopted that recently, we've eliminated all the 3-bedroom units as well. So we've really brought down the impact on the schools by virtue of doing that. Now, whether, we're gonna have some children, 20 to 24 kids are anticipated. This is a very, it's transit-oriented, it's downtown-oriented, it's not children-oriented, so I think those numbers are probably conservatively high. And I think that the impact spread over the grades will be noticeable. And the planning board, I think, agreed in its findings that was the case.
Right, you also met with the school district?
We did meet with the school district, and after that meeting, we did agree to make a donation to the school. We put that in writing to the planning board in the amount of $25,000. They had a number of projects that they had identified, but they were hugely expensive and not really, in our opinion, commensurate with what effect we were having on the school. But we wanted to show the fact that we had heard them and appreciate their situation, and wanted to make some gesture beyond reducing the number of children to a cash contribution.
Are there no child-friendly amenities like playgrounds and the like?
They're really more adult, if you will. There's a swimming pool and terrace, there's a fitness center, there's those kinds of things.
Another reason why it might not be so family-friendly. People may not decide to.
Right, but if ideally some nice folks who put their kids through the district 15 years ago and they sell their 4-bedroom house, but they want to stay locally, and this would be a great place for them to go, and their 4-bedroom house that hasn't any kids in the district for 15 years suddenly has a 3, like it's part of a larger community. So I know that the demographers at the school have pointed out there's a broader impact than just the number of bedrooms. So I wanted to be sure that conversation happened with the schools. I haven't followed up with them myself, but it sounds like you and Valerie have, so I hope that's A-okay.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a quick question. I know we don't regards to any of the materials, but what is the material that you're going to be using on these buildings?
Ed?
I am Ed Vogel with Warschauer Lindsay Warschauer. To address your question on materials for the exterior, we have a brick facade, and then we're also going to have a stucco-looking material as well, which is what we call as EFIS, which is Exterior Insulation Finish System. The facade itself has bays, and that starts to create a rhythm across the facade. And then the brick areas are actually recessed back. In front of the brick areas, which are normally the living room, or living spaces of the units, there is a forward projection of a balcony. So we have movement across the facade with the 2 materials, and then we also have a pull forward with the balcony.
Is that real brick? Or is that the EFS material that looks like brick, or the
No,
veneer?
We're right now, we have in the project what we call a thin brick.
Okay.
They have different products out there. But what's good about this product that we're contemplating is that it's set into an insulation board. So now what we're doing is to work with green or sustainable technologies is to increase our thermal barrier, hence reducing energy. So it all comes into play.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. All
Thank you, so we'll see you next week.
Yes, indeed.
I hope you don't have too much more work tonight.
Okay, thank you. That's the last item on the formal aspect of the agenda. If we could have a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of personnel.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This ends the televised portion of tonight's agenda. We will see you next Wednesday evening at the courthouse for a full legislative session. Have a good week.